Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into the massive ripple effect of June 11, 2026. Today, we're going to break down a wildly chaotic 24-hour news cycle that serves as a literal inflection point in tech history. We're looking at a single day where the entire industry, from artificial intelligence and cybersecurity to the global economy and the consumer hardware you use every day, experience simultaneous tectonic shifts. Here's the roadmap for today's briefing. We'll kick things off with software and AI, pivot over to security and infrastructure, zoom out to the macroeconomic climate, and wrap up with hardware and Apple's forced obsolescence. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Software and AI and the battle for frontier AI dominance.
So a bombshell report just dropped revealing that OpenAI is actually considering some drastic price cuts ahead of their IPO. But why? Well, the market share shift we're seeing is just dramatic. Anthropic has rocketed to an unbelievable $47 billion annual recurring revenue run rate. That's almost double OpenAI's $25 billion. Seeing an undisputed heavyweight lose ground this fast, it's historically unprecedented, and you better believe it, it's setting the stage for an all-out pricing war.
And the real catalyst here? It really just boils down to technical superiority and cost. Anthropic's Claude Mythos 5 is absolutely changing the game. It scores an 84.7% on the SWE bench for complex coding tasks, completely beating out OpenAI's 78.3%. And here's the kicker, it's actually cheaper. We're talking $12 per million tokens compared to 15. For enterprise buyers, that's a value proposition they literally cannot ignore.
Now, this price war is totally a double-edged sword. On one hand, if you're a startup founder or developer, you're getting incredibly cheap opportunities to build applications, and this advanced tech is being deeply democratized. But you really have to watch your unit economics. This race to the bottom could severely chew up AI company margins, causing massive operational losses. And honestly, we might even see quality take a hit if these giants start cutting corners just to save a few bucks.
Section 2. Security and infrastructure and the rapidly escalating cyber threats. Because while our AI models are getting wildly smarter, the very infrastructure they run on is under a level of attack we haven't quite seen before. Think about the number 206. Microsoft just set a deeply concerning historic record by issuing patches for a staggering 206 vulnerabilities in a single Patch Tuesday update. To put that into perspective, this spans every single layer of the Windows ecosystem, from kernel-level drivers all the way down to network protocols. It's the absolute highest count for a single month in the company's entire history.
But you know what? The sheer volume isn't even the scariest part. It's the 3 critical 0 days. Exploit code for these 3 severe vulnerabilities was already out in the wild before Microsoft even had patches ready to go. This is basically a nightmare scenario. It means IT professionals absolutely must stick to CISA's strict 72-hour patching rule to protect their fleets, because the weapons are already out there in the attacker's hands. And making this whole situation even more stressful is who's actually taking advantage of these flaws. China's JDY botnet has now expanded to over 1,500 compromised devices, and a chilling 60% of that focus is aimed squarely at US networks. This botnet is essentially acting as a supercharged scanner, weaponizing these newly disclosed Microsoft vulnerabilities as fast as possible to target US military and critical infrastructure.
Moving on to Section 3, macroeconomics and the economic squeeze.
So, all these intense tech struggles, they're happening against a backdrop of some serious economic turbulence. The U.S. Consumer Price Index just surged to a 3-year high of 4.2%. And that one single data point was enough to trigger a massive 334-point drop in the Dow. It's a pretty clear signal that the days of easy money and totally predictable markets are well and truly over for tech investors.
But what's really interesting here is that this inflationary pressure isn't just a broad-based economy-wide thing. Core CPI is actually holding steady at 2.9%. The real culprit is heavily concentrated in a massive 12.5% spike right in the energy sector. And that's being driven almost entirely by escalating geopolitical tensions that are just pushing oil prices higher and higher.
This unique dynamic has definitely drawn some very mixed reactions. Former President Trump noted he loves the inflation, pointing out the potential profit and employment boosts for domestic oil producers. But looking at it from another angle, this creates a seriously tough monetary dilemma for the broader economy. This is especially true for the tech sector, which, as we know, relies heavily on favorable interest rates to fund all that rapid growth.
Which brings us to the Federal Reserve's absolutely impossible trilemma. Option 1, they can fight this energy-driven inflation with high interest rates, but risk sparking a full-blown recession. Option 2, ignore it, but completely lose their institutional credibility. Or option 3, try to split the difference and risk plunging us into stagflation. Because monetary policy simply cannot fix global oil supply shocks, the tech world, especially startups, really needs to start planning for prolonged capital scarcity and much more conservative valuations.
Okay, Section 4, Hardware and Consumer. Let's talk about the ARM hardware revolution.
Bringing things back to the tangible devices we use every day, NVIDIA just unveiled the RTX Spark. This is an incredibly powerful ARM-based superchip designed specifically for Windows. Just listen to these specs. You've got a 20-core ARM CPU paired with over 6,000 Blackwell GPU cores. It promises desktop-class AI inference and gaming performance, but the real game changer? MacBook-level 22-hour battery life. For Windows power users, this is literally the holy grail.
Now, if this chip actually achieves the true performance parity it's promising, that old software compatibility excuse for sticking with legacy x86 architecture, it pretty much vanishes. This presents an absolute existential threat to the decades-long duopoly of Intel and AMD. We are looking at a massive, fundamental architectural shift in how consumer computing is actually built.
But with all these massive architectural leaps happening across the entire industry, we have to pause for a second and ask a really vital question. How is this blistering pace of innovation impacting the lifespan of the consumer hardware you already own?
That leads us right into Section 5, Apple's forced obsolescence. So, at WWDC 2026, Apple made a highly controversial software support decision that perfectly highlights this accelerating and frankly frustrating hardware replacement cycle. Apple is completely cutting watchOS 27 support for 5 different models. They're drawing a totally arbitrary hardware line right at the S9 chip, citing the processing power required for their new conversational Siri and AI features. Guys, this represents the largest single-year support cut in Apple Watch history.
And for consumers, the reality here is pretty stark. Think about it. If you bought a $400 Series 8 just 2 years ago, you're now forced into a really tough spot. You either live with obsolete software that won't get vital security patches, or you reluctantly open your wallet to buy the newest model. And the irony? It's all for an AI feature that's basically telling you it's time for an upgrade. The lifespan of our hardware is shrinking rapidly, while the software demands just absolutely skyrocket.
Which brings us to our ultimate takeaway. In a landscape completely defined by AI price wars, state-sponsored cyber threats, economic squeezes, and rapid hardware obsolescence, how are you going to adapt to this 2026 tech inflection point? Because in this rapidly evolving environment, standing still literally equals falling behind. You've got to stay secure against 0 days, pivot towards sustainable business models, and anticipate these massive hardware shifts. The tech world just fast-forwarded 5 years in a single day. So are you upgrading your strategy, or are you about to become obsolete?